Hello there, I'm Frames Janko, and like many other people, I grew up reading, watching, and enjoying Star Wars content. And a lot of that content, after the Disney buyout, became legends or non canon. And while that may have hurt a lot of fans who had a lot of characters and stories that were near and dear to their hearts, pushed aside in favor of new stories, it makes sense from a business standpoint of wanting to tell new stories under new leadership and not be held back. And also, George Lucas had already considered anything that wasn't something that he wrote for the movies to be slightly less canon. Basically, there was like a tier list with G canon, meaning George Lucas canon, meaning it's the most canon. And even upon that, in recent years, he's kind of gone back on what he officially considered to be real. So, as much as it sucked to us, the things we loved might not have really been canon initially. Big one for me, Starkiller from the Force Unleashed games. Big fan of those games, big fan of the characters, big fan of Sam Witwer, who is still canon because he's like 15 Star Wars characters. But with the growing love for The Mandalorian and Clone Wars coming back with a Bad Batch spinoff set during the time of the Empire, which is super cool, and all these new spinoffs being talked about, I figured it's worth bringing up a super easy fix to bring some of your favorite characters back into Star Wars canon, and it literally would take 3, 4 lines of dialogue, and you're there. You're done. Now, I know there are a lot of characters people love. They were during the era of like the Dash Rendars, the Kyle Katarns, the stuff that was peripheral characters made for video games, novels, comics, and so on during the era right before they made the prequels, and maybe even some of the stuff they made post Clone Wars up until the Disney buyout. Now, there's a really easy way to make the stuff that was erased during the time of Empire Strikes Back all the way up to when The Force Awakens happens come back in some way, shape, or form. I cannot guarantee that this will work for every single story and make it 100% canon. In fact, a lot of characters may have to have their roles decreased slightly, but honestly, Dash Rendar was just Han Solo if he was tougher.
I'm out of it for a little while. Everybody gets delusions of grandeur.
And Kyle Katarn was just Luke if he was kind of edgier. They were basically copies of the characters, and that's not a dig at them. They were literally made for content written during an era where Luke and Han were busy doing other things and stories, so they needed characters that could fill those roles. Not an insult. Very cool characters. But they don't need to be in every single story that Han and Luke were already in. Here's what you do. We know from The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker that Luke did have at least one Jedi Academy. And from the Ben Solo, Rise of Kylo Ren comic books, that there was a time when there were plenty of Padawans being trained. But with that knowledge that we have, that Luke did have at least one, here's how you bring in those characters you loved. You say that Luke had several Jedi academies taken care of by other Force-sensitive people or people that he just trusted to go there. You could even say that he found places so in tune with the Force that the ghosts of past Jedi Masters like Obi-Wan were teaching these new generations. You can even say that Kyle Katarn was someone that had a very similar life to what you see in the old games and books and fun stuff like that. You can still have that whole Valley of the Jedi subplot, which is kind of a really cool, weird story in itself. And you can say that he was still Battlemaster, that he still trained his own Jedi Academy, that Luke would just go from place to place inspecting to make sure everyone was still up to snuff. But that he intentionally kept them separate because he remembers the fall of the Jedi, and that he had a contingency. If anything was ever to happen to him or his Jedi Academy or any Jedi Academy, all further Jedi Academies would go dark, disperse and hide in far-off planets, planetoids, moon, the Outer Rim, wild space, wherever they could to lie low. Because even if they were inactive, the Force could use them to do good in the future, and Luke would want to make sure that never again could the dark side wipe out the Jedi from the universe. Imagine a scene as simple as this. It could take place in an animated feature, in a Mandalorian spin-off live-action event, in a comic book, any medium that Star Wars wants to exist in. And it would take roughly a minute. We can say for the purposes of this that Han Solo was dropping a young Ben Solo off at Luke's Jedi Academy for his first day of Jedi school.
All right, Ben. You have a good day at school, all right? You be good for Uncle Luke, and don't start a death cult with Andy Serkis, okay?
Oh, I hate you, Dad. I hope I stab you on a walkway someday.
All jokes aside, Luke, you better keep this kid safe. He might have my looks, but he's got Chewie's brains.
Don't you worry, Han. Trust me, as someone who's also kissed Leia numerous times, I know how dangerous she can be when she's angry. I think it's a rage problem. But you won't have to worry about that. I've taken extra care to make sure that my countless Jedi Academies are staffed by only the best people to be training them. Yes, that character that you like, that's the one I got. That one. And if anything ever happens, like, say someone tried to kill all of the Padawans at my Jedi Academy, the other Jedi Academies would all go dark and keep all of those characters safe and hidden away. That way, that Order 66 can never again be repeated. The Jedi will always be around, and we have a loophole in case someone ever rushes a series of movies out that gets rid of all the characters that everyone likes.
Oh, that's crazy. Why would anyone do that? I mean, what could possibly happen? Palpatine coming back? We saw the Death Star blow up. There's no way that could happen. That's ridiculous and lazy writing.
Yeah, that would be lazy writing. Oh well. See you later, Han. Have a great day being an admiral and not a burnout dad.
Ha, you know it.
It makes sense. It ties into his knowledge of what his father was responsible for, but his hope that the good could still grow up from beyond all of that. And of course, you do still need to build out more of a reason for why Luke would ignite a lightsaber to execute his nephew for having bad dreams when his dad was Space Hitler, responsible for genocide, and he still said,
I know there is good in you. The Emperor hasn't driven it from you fully.
Maybe you can say it's because he knew his dad was the chosen one, that he knew that he could be redeemed, whereas Ben was not. It's messy and it's dumb, and it's the worst thing Rian Johnson did to the franchise, because they basically f***ed Luke Skywalker's character up immensely. That's not just my opinion, it's Mark Hamill's opinion, and he's Luke Skywalker, sort of. So I feel validated in that opinion. Not to insult the people that made that movie, I'm sure very nice, intelligent, well-practiced people made the props and costumes and effects and did rewrites. That's just, I don't like it. And a lot of other people don't either. They're very vocal about that. By saying this, you can bring in Kyle Katarn. You can bring in Dash Rendar as someone who was running missions whenever Han was off with the rebellion. Say that he still wasn't a joiner and that he was still doing things. In fact, I was going to save this for another video, but I'll probably just touch on it again. I want to do episodes called Talk Nerdy to Me, where we discuss the real and fictional histories of some of your favorite characters and franchises. And I wanted to do Dash Rendar. He's already somewhat canon in the fact that they were making the franchise that he was in, that multimedia project, they were making it right around the time they were doing the remastered editions of the original movies. So Dash Rendar's ship is actually in Tatooine during those movies. And if that wasn't enough, in a tie-in novel for Solo, a Star Wars story where someone is recounting all of these stories about smugglers and so on, there's a mention about how Dash Rendar doesn't believe that Han actually pulled off the Kessel Run, and how he says, if I'm here, Han is obsolete. Which is funny because in a lot of ways that's true. They are very similar. They make one another kind of obsolete in a lot of scenarios. So he's already sort of canon. This is just a way to solidify that, and technically Clone Commando armor is Katarn. It's called Katarn class armor. So maybe there's already a way for him to, the name exists within canon, but the character of Kyle Katarn, to my knowledge, does not. It makes sense. He's basically Luke Skywalker, and you already have Luke Skywalker. But if Luke is going to go the way that he does in The Last Jedi, you can almost adapt some of Luke's stories from Legends canon and give it to Kyle Katarn, which, yeah, that actually serves a really good purpose of circumventing those cool Luke stories we lost. I don't know if I would want him to be with Mara Jade, and all these other things were very much tied to Luke, especially since Kyle trained Mara for a while in the comics. But a smart person like Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau, or I'm sure a ton of other really talented writers and directors out there, I'm sure could make it all work. Cutting the things that were a little silly and hokey, because there were a lot of silly stories in Legends, and fitting all of the good things in a new compact way that gives fans the stories they most loved as a priority of making those canon again, and then the lesser ones, maybe if they can't quite work, at least we got the ones that people really, really love. You're not going to be able to please everyone, but you can please most people. I'm going to do a whole video about how Solo could have just been a movie that you think is setting up Han Solo, but it turns out that's Dash Rendar the whole time, and who I would cast, and all these silly little things that would never actually happen, but they're fun for people like us to joke and talk in what if. And we've all got more time during lockdown, so why the hell not? So yeah, with just those words of, no, Luke had a contingency, you can come up with a cool name for it. You can come up with a cool reason for it, and you can come up with all these new stories for why all of these characters you loved were lying low and weren't present for those stories. And it actually makes more sense for the Rise of Skywalker in that maybe the message that Lando gave out was, hey, Luke came back and fought. He doesn't want you to be in hiding anymore. It's been, let's see, I think Kylo Ren was supposed to be around 15 to 18 during the time when he goes rogue, and he's supposed to be in his early 20s, so not even maybe 5, 8 years. Gives a good reason for why in the Rise of Skywalker suddenly a bajillion people showed up. Sure, they wouldn't answer the rebellion because they were told to stay in hiding, so they didn't answer Leia's call. But when they find out from Lando that, hey, yeah, no, this isn't just the rebellion calling. Luke meant to tell you to come out, but he was hiding on a rock with a bunch of frog nuns, so he didn't get around to it because he died. But also Force ghosts can apparently interact with physical objects, so I don't know. Star Wars, it's space wizards. Get over it. It makes that ending a little bit more palatable. Again, the sequel's a real mixed bag, but there's too much invested in it to really throw it out. And if we can make talks about trade negotiations, the coarseness of sand, and whether or not pod racing is fun or spinning is a neat trick, cool. If you can make Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship genuinely interesting, if you can build Obi-Wan and his love interest never before referenced, only in a children's show, one of the most heartbreaking stories in all of Star Wars, and make me give a shit, you can absolutely, with the right leadership, make the sequel trilogy an ample space for creative people to come in and build it to the same level as the prequels now hold in many people's hearts, including my own. It's right here below the red, white, and blue Dwayne Johnson branded t-shirt. So, I hope this has been something that you can chew over and think. I do think there's a cool way to update some of these characters. Again, the bad guys in those full motion videos that Kyle Katarn fought were silly as hell, but you can bring them forward. And in fact, Sam Witwer already has a pretty good way to bring Starkiller into modern canon, but I think I'm going to save that for when we do an episode of Talk Nerdy to Me about Starkiller himself. And it's, again, a very simple fix that is so genius and simple, you'll feel silly for not thinking of it yourself. And it doesn't undercut any of the story. So, thank you for watching. You've been an incredible audience. I've been an acceptable host. Thank you for clicking, for watching, for subscribing, for whatever you've done, for engaging with one another in polite and civil ways down in the comment section, which is ever so rare in YouTube and social media in general. Thank you for watching, and have a great time. Stay safe, stay sane, and until I see you again, I'll see you in the next video. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I messed that up. Endings are hard.
Chewie, lock down that motivator. Any interest in a slightly used Wookiee?